ready?
Got open man. DJ Moore. End zone. Touchdown. Touchdown Bears.
I am Jeff Joniak.
Blitz is on. Down he goes. Oscar.
What was it like playing for Coach Ditka?
I don't want to answer any questions like that.
Pressure coming. He's in big trouble. Down he goes. Montez Sweat.
And now, Bears Etc. brought to you by Miller Lite with the voices of the Bears, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Well, we had quite a show at Soldier Field on Saturday, the home opener of the 2024 season, preseason style, the only home game as they get ready now to move into Kansas City on Thursday night. I'm Jeff Joniak with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer, and this is the Bears Etc. podcast, number 86. The episode is brought to you by Miller, ESPN analyst, former Glenbard West high school football star, University of Iowa safety. His name is Matt Bowen. He played for the St. Louis Rams. He played for the Packers. He played for Washington, ended his career with Buffalo, and now he coaches at IC Catholic Prep as well, and has 4 kids. He's a busy man, always with a smile on his face, and one of the best analysts out there to talk football. We're going to break down some of what happened in the game against the Bengals at Soldier Field. First, Tommy, how you feeling, buddy?
Oh, I'm feeling good, ready to go. Excited to have Matt. It's always interesting to talk to a football expert analyst to just see what he sees in the NFL and with the Bears.
Oh, one thing I forgot about Matt. Matt, you played safety in the NFL, but you were also recruited to Iowa potentially as a quarterback, correct?
I wanted to be the next Chuck Long. That was my dream. The next Chuck Long at Iowa. You know, Chuck played at Wheaton North. The funny thing about that is 2 years later, Chuck ends up being my defensive back coach at the University of Iowa.
Wow.
So it's funny how things work. But I went there as a quarterback. I played my first year on the scout team, redshirted under Hayden Fry. And I got hit like you wouldn't believe. So Coach Fry, when he had a red jersey, and this is 1995, that did not matter. And starting defense, because you understand, guys, back then teams were still running the triple option. So I'd be the triple option scout team quarterback when we were preparing for Iowa State that week. And I'd pitch the ball. 3 seconds later, I'd be on the ground. Okay, there was no protection back then. So I played my first year on the scout team, and then we were going down to El Paso to play Washington in the Sun Bowl. And I went into Chuck Long's office, and I said, Coach, what do you think about me playing quarterback? He said, do you want to play on Sundays? Meaning the National Football League. I said, yes, I do. He goes, it's not going to happen at quarterback. Come play defensive back for me. And then I switched over to defensive back, played behind 2 NFL guys, Damian Robinson, Kerry Cooks. I tell the kids I coach now, look, I had to wait 3 years post-high school to really play. Red shirt, played on special teams as a red shirt freshman. My sophomore year in Iowa, I was, the sub package, the dime safety. But, back then there wasn't many. You weren't in sub package a lot of the times, right? You still had pro personnel. Wasn't wide open until Drew Brees got to Purdue. So I had to wait my time, but it was the best thing that happened to me. I tell young kids all the time, the best thing that happened to me in college was to develop the right way, to take the proper time in the weight room, to build my body, to build my football intelligence, learn how to watch tape, and then be finally prepared physically and mentally to go play Big Ten football.
Hey, Matt, real quick before Jeff jumps back in. So back when I started college, we had freshman games. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Did you come from the era where you had freshman games, or are we on 2 different age levels?
No, I mean, we didn't have freshman games, Tom, but on Fridays we had what were called Hawk hitters. Okay. So that was like the freshman game. Right. The redshirt guys would play, when it got cold out inside the bubble, and there was like no rules. It was like the Wild West. I mean, there was no reps. Quarterbacks were live, and it was out of control. But yeah, my father-in-law played at U of I. He played with Buckus at U of I. And he always tells me that when they had their freshman games back then. And he played in the Rose Bowl. I don't know what year that was with Buckus, but yeah, he told me about the freshman games as well.
Yeah, we played like Wisconsin. We played Michigan State. We, freshman teams that we would travel and they would travel. And it was, it was our first exposure into real 4-quarter gameplay before we eventually made it up to the varsity level.
Yeah, that was my question, if you played other teams as opposed to inter-squad. So it was not inter-squad.
Not for us. Wow. We are kind of fortunate to play teams that were in close enough proximity that we could either drive to or they could drive to. And it was a great experience, actually. And our families got to come and watch them. And it wasn't something they charged for. It was like they let the student body in free. And It was kind of fun.
What were you playing then? Because you started out, didn't you play some tight end as well, or defense?
No, my first varsity action I ever got was at fullback, and then I started playing defensive line.
What?
But in the freshman games, I was playing offensive guard. So
okay, but you were a fullback.
Well, so this is what happened.
Wow.
My freshman year against USC, we put in a formation where we had myself as an offensive lineman and Todd Bruni, who was also an offensive guard who played out at Marian Catholic. And they put us in a double fullback, halfback formation. And we had linebacker responsibilities. And that's the play. That was the first time I ever entered a major college game, was against USC. And I blocked Chip Banks. Oh. And it was a neat introduction to the major college football.
Chip Banks, a outstanding Cleveland Browns outside linebacker. Correct. Very, very
Correct.
Good player. Do you remember your first snap in a Big Ten game, Matt?
I do. It was my freshman year. It was late in the game. We were playing Northwestern at home. I remember that, because I remember the special team snaps, but the first snap of defense really was my freshman year against Northwestern, freezing at Kinnick Stadium. I did not do very well, I'll tell you that. I was all over. Again, I always go back to coaching the high school kids, but you can't really prepare for it, right? Because all of a sudden your heart rate elevates. Like you just can't control it. You're so excited, so nervous, and you're like, okay, where are my eyes supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be reading? And all of a sudden I'm taking false steps. I'm all over the place. So it takes time. Yep. Just like I remember my first snap. This is a good story. So my first snap in the NFL, preseason game against the Raiders at the Dome in St. Louis. First kickoff of the preseason, right? And I go flying down there, I make the tackle at the 15. I chop this guy at the thigh boards. I'm getting up, I'm all excited. I run back to the sideline. I go, oh, you guys got to go again. Go again. There's a penalty. I'm like, on who? I'm like, it was on you. You were 5 yards offside. We paused the tape in the meeting room on Monday morning or Monday afternoon when we got back. And I was literally 4.5, 5 yards offsides on a kickoff.
Oh my God.
But I'll tell you what, it helped. Coaches loved it. Coaches love to hit, so I'll take it.
Tom, your first NFL snap, you remember it?
Outside of kickoff return, it was against the Minnesota Vikings. And, I think everybody has, when you're in a backup role, Coach Stanfeld came up to me and said, hey, Becker tweaked his knee, you're in. And so I went in and I had my first snap was against Scott Studwell for the linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings. And we ran a play to the left and I had to take a hard angle to cut him off. And I think the first play I was in there, I cut him. And that blossomed a great friendship from that point on.
You guys are still friends. You guys are still friends every time you see them. This Bears Etc. podcast is brought to you by Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. For a guy who never would have ever dreamed of having a shot at taking an NFL snap, these little stories I always get a kick out of. And I never know when they're going to pop up, so thanks for allowing me to go down that path, gentlemen. All right, Matt, let's dig in. I know Tom's gotten through the tape probably 10 times already because that's what he does, and you do as well. Caleb's a big story right now. He was splattered all over the networks here this morning on ESPN, on NFL Network. A lot of people writing about him. A lot of people are putting a picture on him on X next to Patrick Mahomes, and that's what makes me crazy. I want him to be Caleb Williams. I don't want him to be Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or anybody else, but he certainly has those traits, does he not?
Yeah, he has undeniable talent. I remember writing that when I watched his college tape at USC. I always use the term uncoachable traits. He has a lot of that and stuff that if I'm a position coach, I can't really teach. I can teach the footwork, the drop, and mechanics, where to put your eyes, release point. But the stuff he does outside of structure, I think that's what we're really getting at here, especially last week in Cincinnati in that final drive of the first half, making those plays, even the play that didn't count. The pass to Dunze in the end zone, that was an absolute laser. An off-platform throw, working into the boundary. Okay, as a player, I wouldn't even have the confidence to make that throw, right? That's another thing about this guy. It's the confidence level he has, such a young player that I can make these type of throws. I think the biggest developmental arc for him will be playing on time in the National Football League. It's every young quarterback, right? Can you play on time? Can you throw with rhythm? And I think there's ways that Shane Waldron, the Bears' new offensive coordinator, can script that for him, whether it's off of play action, a lot of movement. Tom, you know this, they've seen a lot of movement passes in the first 2 weeks, meaning a lot of boot, a lot of play action, getting him to the edge of the formation, which kind of cuts the field in half for him and gives him defined reads, leveled read, underneath option or a crosser coming over the top. And I think that'll be the next progression for him. But right now, what you're seeing, there's a reason he went number one. There's a reason that people in Chicago should be excited, because he can make plays when things go south. And that's a tool that is important. In addition to the poise, in addition to the mechanics, all the stuff we talk about the quarterback position, being able to create when you have to make a play, that elevates people at the position, and he has those tools.
Matt, one thing that I think the team's going to have to pay attention to, especially Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, when I go back and watch the tape, it's teaching pass protection to the offensive line, because you're not always guaranteed, even though you're calling a specific directed protection, that the quarterback's going to be there. Now you got to start telling these guys, look, you got to play to the whistle, because you may think that he's to your outside shoulder, but he's already scrambling right. And I think that's going to be interesting to see the progress of the Shane Waldron, Chris Morgan coaching time frames that are directly related to the way Caleb sees things.
No, I agree with that. And to your point, Tom, that's going to be a progression. That's going to be something that has to be developed. And you really need live game reps for that, right, Tom? It's one thing to do practice. We all know that. That's why I like that he's playing. And I wanted to mention that, because there's a lot of coaches around the league that sit their starters, right, for all of August. There's one coach who doesn't. That's Andy Reid in Kansas City. And Andy Reid's won a lot of football games. Patrick Mahomes won a lot of football games, the Super Bowl titles, and they're still out there playing. So I like the fact that Caleb Williams got extra reps, even when some of the guys came out this past Saturday. DJ Moore's out of the football game. He's still out there playing because he needs those reps. He needs to work with the starting offensive line, with some of the backups too, because, Tom, as we know, throughout the course of the season, there's going to be guys that get banged up, and the backups are going to play. But that is a progression mark right there that will probably take, and you would know better, but I'm just speculating here, the month of September, right?
Yep.
Until everyone is comfortable working with his style of play, because it is so unique because of his creativity.
I believe that to get together with your offensive line, if you have the luxury of having the same 5 guys, you need to have 1,000 reps behind center in order to get familiar with the cadence. All right, let's travel to the defensive side of the ball. Now, you're a new defensive back coach, and you're playing against Caleb. What coverages is Caleb going to see initially that maybe they disguise before the snap of the ball? What are the coverages that make the most difficult for him to read downfield? What do you think about that?
I think he's going to see the picture change quite a bit when we get to week 1 and that first quarter of the season. What I mean by that is a lot of late safety rotation. I would always start in a quarter shell against Caleb, and I'd rotate the safeties, whether spin one down weak, drop one as a robber, to take away crossers and over routes, but really try to make him read the new picture post snap. And I think he got some of that in the week 1 preseason game against Buffalo. I think Buffalo did a really good job of changing coverages. They went from single high to 2 high. They threw in some 2-man also. And I think that's going to be a progression for him as well, is being able to read the coverages as quickly as they happen in the National Football League. Because if I'm playing against a rookie quarterback, I'm going to throw a lot at him. Both coverage, both pressure, mix the fronts to try to make him read it out. I mean, I got to gain an advantage somewhere. But you also have to be careful, because Caleb Williams has the mobility. We always talk about the arm talent and the throws he can make off platform. He can run the ball too. So if you're going to play 2-man, if you're going to play man coverage, and you do not contain him, that is a major issue from a defensive perspective. So in the back of my mind as a defensive play caller, I'm thinking, well, I really like 2-man in this situation. But if he gets outside, we're in trouble. That's a first down. That's plus 15. That's plus 20 yards now, because he can do so much as a runner as well.
We are also sponsored by Vizzy Hard Seltzer. Flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You guys are taking all my questions, because I wanted perspective of an offensive lineman and how they have to adjust as time goes on. And that's why they like mobility in these guys, Tommy. They want these guys to be able to get off the ball, not only just to get the second level and beyond of the run game, get those tackle sweeps, the pulls. They want these guys to be athletic enough to be able to handle what Caleb Williams and previously Justin Fields delivered in terms of their mobility. And then from the safety perspective from you, Matt, Jones on this roster, who his responsibility at UCLA against USC was to spy this particular quarterback, Caleb Williams. Can an NFL defense afford a spy on Caleb Williams because he does not want to run. He can run, and that's the difference. The late eyes all the way to the end of the play. Do you waste a defender on that potential mobility impact?
Well, I'll say this. I've always thought this about a spy. It looks great, right? It looks great on a chalkboard. It looks great in Friday practice, right? Because at Friday practice, everything works. We tried to spy one time on Michael Vick. It did not work, okay? Because he just ran past the guy, right? We're wasting a number. And that's what you're doing as a defense, where you're giving up a number, right? Whether it's a rusher or someone in coverage to do this. I think there's certain situations I would try it against Caleb Williams. But also, you have to have someone that can match him athletically. You have to have someone that can run with him, has a pursuit speed and a lateral agility to cut off the football when he escapes outside the pocket. I do think you'll see it at times, Jeff. But again, if I'm playing against Caleb Williams, I'm more concerned about the rush, clogging interior rush lanes, trying to force him to stay in the pocket than putting a spy on him.
Tom, you agree?
100%. I think there's certain guys like Matt mentioned, Michael Vick, and I think Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. I think they're unspyable because you're not going to have an athlete that's going to be able to match up with those guys when you consider what their straight line speed is, especially if they know where they want to go before the defender does and if he's respecting the middle of the field. But, with a guy like Caleb, I think bodies in coverage will play a bigger role early in his career than trying to spy him. And you got to rely on what type of pressure you can provide to him. Matt, throughout the course of training camp, the Bears play a 4-man line. The teams that they play in the preseason play a 4-man line. Then he's going to play against a 34 defense the first week of the season. Do you think that there's anything that's changeable in the mind of a young quarterback when he's facing the two fronts, or is everything offensive line blocker type controlled?
I think he's going to see, to your point, Tommy, he's going to see 5-man surfaces too. I mean, that's one of the kind of the trends in NFL now too. Teams will play their sub packet for the 5-man front. So he's going to see multiple fronts. I think this is a situation where he's going to have to lean on his offensive line. He's going to have to help setting protection, right? Because this is all new to him. It's all going to be new to him. And that's the process when you have a young player at that position. It could be the running back in protection. Say, no, check to this. Whatever it may be, that's your job as a teammate in this situation. Understanding that you have this young player with a super high talent level, but there's situations that he has never even experienced yet. And like I've said, you can't recreate everything in practice. You can't recreate everything in a preseason setting because you're not going to see as much as you will in a regular season game. So he's going to need help in those situations. And again, this is going to be part of the developmental process for him because a team like Tennessee with a new defensive coordinator, you can't really study for them yet. You can't. There's going to be things that pop up week one that they've never seen in terms of the quarterback adjusting to something like that, both coverage, front, and rush.
So I came up with a bunch of words to describe Caleb the other day because I was getting ready to do an interview for somebody, and they want to know what he's all about. And the things that have popped, everything that you see, the awareness, the pocket, the spatial awareness in the pocket, the ability to ad-lib, eye awareness also because of how he's always scanning. And even if they give him half-field reads, the guy's still reading full field. But I'm going to throw one in there that I didn't think of until now is acuity, mental acuity. Because you listen to a golfer after they complete their round. They'll tell you every single shot, what club they used, what the distance was, what the wind was doing, and why they did it. They have a great recall for all those shots. Caleb did that Saturday at the podium. What's that tell you about him at this age of 22?
It means he's a highly instinctual player. Very self-aware. And that's someone that can self-scout themselves, which is a very important tool. Yep. As a college player, more importantly, a professional football player, to self-scout yourself because understanding what everyone else is watching. You're all watching the same tape. So if you can have that immediate recall of what you did, both positive and negative, it's going to make you a better football player. When you sit down to watch the tape, take your own notes and say, this is where I need to improve. And more importantly, this is where they're going to attack me next week if I don't improve.
For me as a player, I can take a game, a day after or right after or 2 days after, and I can replay every play in my head. If I'm as an offensive lineman, I'm playing 75 snaps. I know every one of them, and then I can anticipate a bad play a couple plays in advance by seeing what's coming up. So I think any player can really go back and have the mental recall of what they're gone through, what they just went through, and their performance and the plays they perform poorly on.
You know, the funny thing is, it just underscores also that this game is not simple. And for the average person who's never played at that level, or maybe never played football, and to assume that, hey, it's all about catching and throwing and tackling, blocking, yes, it is, but the deep dive and the study, and you know, people have told me, everybody's at the team hotel during training camp, and it's about to end. Now they can go on their own, but they have curfew and all that, just like a regular training camp. He's at the hotel. He's studying. I mean, he's out there. He's in his book till all hours of the morning, so he is diving into that book, and so is Tyson Bagent. Let's talk about him, because the value of a backup quarterback has never been more underscored than the last 2 years, when over 60 quarterbacks have been used as starters in the National Football League. It's too many. We always say there's not 32 quarterbacks. How could there be 64, or in this case last year, 66? But Tyson Bagent's value is significant, and he feels quite comfortable in this system. You could see it in his practice performance, Matt and Tom, and you could see it when he showed it. Just a little tap on the helmet, cued Dante Pettis, boom, they were on the money for 2 touchdowns. Those subtle things. How valuable is he right now?
But, these guys are all in the same boat. They're all being introduced to the same system at the same time by Shane Waldron. It's not something like Tyson or Brett or Austin has any more experience in this system than Caleb. And so every one of those guys, if they have superior study habits, can help the next guy. And I think that's important in the quarterback room, is like Matt says. And Dick Stanfield used to say, look, I can't always coach you. You're going to have to start coaching yourself. And I think if those guys can help each other master the terminology and then understand what it means against every defense, every down and distance, every hash mark they're on, in any, what portion of the game they're at. So I think the quarterback complementary to each other is important.
Yeah, and I think to that point, these games are so hard to win. I always tell people that. You prepare all week for 3 hours on a Sunday. And they're very hard to win these games because the talent level is very even across the league. So you can't have a major drop-off between 1 and 2. Is one more talented in terms of your quarterback room? Obviously he is. That's why he's the starter. There can't be so much drop-off that you have to change everything when the backup quarterback comes in. So can Tyson run the same offense as Caleb? That's what you have to ask yourself. If he can, then there's not going to be much of a drop-off. Can he come in the fourth quarter, guys, and win a football game? That's what you need. If Caleb's out for a week, can he come in and win that football game? That's what you need, because these games are so hard to win, and the Bears are going to be in the playoff discussion all season long. That's what I believe with this football team. You need a backup quarterback that can come in, not only run the system, it's not enough anymore. You have to come in and win football games if you get that opportunity.
We're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears.
But one thing I got to ask, because it's Jeff's favorite part of professional football, and that's the corner blitz. Mm-hmm. And when you look at what the Bears, you're shaking your head no?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay.
I love the nickel blitz. Absolutely.
Matt, so when you look at what the Bears did defensively this Saturday against the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they had 5 or 6 blitzes by the defensive backs, and they all got home except one. In the course of the preseason, am I showing too much? Or am I showing that to make sure my opponents in the regular season are prepared for what could possibly happen?
I think it's a little of both. I think you want to put stuff on tape. To your point, we had our final preseason game in 2004. So it was Coach Gibbs' first year back in Washington. And we played in the Hall of Fame game too. So as a starters, we played 5 games. And we were playing Michael Vick and the Falcons. And the second play of the game, we called a double cornerback blitz. Okay. And it was Greg Williams, and we all know Greg likes the pressure, but we wanted it on tape. We wanted people to see this, that this is what we're going to do throughout the season, is that we're going to come after you. We want you to prepare for it. Now, when we got into the regular season, there was a counter off that same look, right? So I think what Coach Eberflus is doing is showing people that, yeah, we are going to pressure this year. But guess what? In the regular season, you're not going to know where we're blitzing from. It can be from anywhere, but we are going to come after you. I liked it they did that. One, you need the reps of it. You need the reps for one, to time up your blitz. You need the coverage drops to work if you're playing zone pressure. If you're playing man pressure, you need those reps, understanding that football has to come out much quicker. Those are all important defensive parts of a pressure that you need to rep in a live game setting. But I love what they did. And I think Coach Eberflus, if you go back, I think it was his final year as a DC in Indianapolis, and you look at the third down rate, they're one of the more blitz-heavy teams. And I think that's what ultimately he would like to get to. Yes, they're still going to play cover 2. They're still going to play their single high coverages, but I think they're going to pressure a little bit more this year. That's my bet.
Tommy, we talked about it early and that happened with Gordon. He's hiding behind a 6'6" Sweat and a 6'6" Dexter, and they got a stunt, and then, here he comes. Logan Woodside never even accounted for him, and he got buried a helmet in his chest. But they couldn't stop it. They kept doing it. And that guy is a quarterback's responsibility, is he not? That blitzing nickel?
Yeah, well, in that situation, based on the offensive protection and what they're doing, and they're blitzing 5, he is unaccounted for, and he's blitzing to the quarterback's, front shoulder. That, to me, that's on the quarterback to identify that. And I'll speak off of this. I thought Kyler Gordon played at a regular season tempo.
Yeah,
he was all over the football field, all over the football field. That's what a starter should do. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. It's not Joe Burrow. So what? You're a pro. Do your job. These are reps for you. If Cincinnati wants to sit their starters, then go produce against their backups. It's not your problem. So I love the way he played on Saturday. If I'm a defensive back coach, I use that as a teaching tool for future training camps. So look, this is a starter, okay? He's still on the field. They have their backups in, and he's still playing like it's week 4 in the regular season. That's how you develop as a pro athlete.
Matt, week 4 of the regular season, week 1 of the regular season, because you have a Jalen Johnson and Tariq Stevenson who are playing at a high level cornerback play, does that give you a little bit more blitz freedom?
I think it does. And I think what Tariq Stevenson did last year in terms of his on-the-ball production, and look, we all know he had some ups and downs beginning of the year, right?
Right.
Going to it at that position. They're going to pick on you. They're going to target you. But look what he did. Look how he progressed throughout the season. And the on-the-ball production, that's what you're getting paid for at a cornerback position. Yes, you have to tackle, you have to set an edge. Those are very important things. If I'm a defensive back coach and you don't tackle, just come stand next to me on the sideline. You're not going to play. But the on-the-ball production wins games. And that's what he did. So to your point, Tommy, yes, I think you have 2 corners that can match up and be physical when they match up. They're very physical in terms of their coverage traits. They're not passive players. They will be aggressive. So that gives you more upside in terms of, hey, let's go after them. Let's send some more pressure.
Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/BearsPod to find delivery options near you. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Tom and I have been raving about the secondary for 2 years. And they are playing at an elite level, if you ask me, all across the board. And that's without Jaquan Brisker so far. He hasn't been out there for several weeks. Hopefully he is soon to return. I think it's vitally important he return as soon as possible. But Kevin Byard is a cagey veteran back there who still feels he can take the ball away. And, I mean, you go right down to the undrafted rookie free agent out of Troy, Reddy Stewart. 5 tackles. It's not too big for him. He puts his face mask in there and makes a stop. He blitzes. He's in pass coverage. They're going to have some really hard decisions. It's good to have, but it almost as if every one of these guys has taken the cue from Jalen Johnson and about the confidence and the positivity in that locker room and have really played with their hair on fire. Is that possible in a room that one guy can make that kind of a difference to the other 10 guys in that room?
Yeah, I believe it can. I played with a lot of great veterans. Todd Light, when I was in St. Louis, was our corner. Someone that commanded the room, commanded the respect of the room. Champ Bailey in Washington, when I was in Washington, it's another player, in my opinion, that commanded the room. And they are natural leaders. You want to emulate what they do in practice, how they study, what they do in the weight room. Everything they do really filters out to the entire defensive back room. And I'm not saying it's more important as a coach. The coach is still the leader of the room. We all understand that. But Tom would agree with this. The NFL, in my opinion, is more player-driven than ever in terms of who the leaders are, who are the people you follow, who are the high-character guys in terms of their football character that you follow. And to have someone like a Jalen Johnson can really boost the confidence and the production of a young player. And I've always said this, you can never have too many defensive backs on your roster.
Right.
You just can't. Not in today's league. You know, the Bears are more sub-packaged with 5 defensive backs, but we're seeing it a lot around the league right now. A lot more teams are using dime, too, because of what they can do from a pre-snap perspective in terms of late rotation, creating matchups they want on the defensive side of the ball, and that's having defensive backs. And also, especially with the new kickoff rule, you need DBs to cover and play special teams.
You know, Matt, I've been impressed with Jonathan Owens because I really didn't know what to think him coming from Green Bay to the Bears, and whether it's on special teams or regular defense, he hasn't shied away from contact. So when you talk about depth in the defensive backfield, he's a nice luxury to have along with Elijah Hicks and Terrell Smith and the rest of the guys, because multiple receivers, multiple guys. So when you look at the Bears, I think this Cincinnati game, they started 1 back, 3 wide receivers. And when you put Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore all on the field at the same time, you're the defensive back coach of any opponent. How do you see defending that group of receivers?
Well, one, if you're going to play man, you better have the matchups. He's got to match up to Cole Kmet, too.
Yeah.
When DeAndre Swift's on the field, who I think the Bears targeted because he has more, he has pass catching upside. There's no question about that. Now you got 5 receivers you have to account for, really. So you have to have matchups. It's one thing to say we're going to play man coverage. Everyone says it. Well, you better have the guys, right?
Right.
You better have the guys. And I do think this. I think in the NFL this year, you're going to see more press coverage. I talked to coaches in the offseason, and I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for defensive backs and defense coordinators, because you have to disrupt. You can't give clean releases to DJ Moore, Odunze, and Keenan Allen and expect to win football games. They are going to be challenged, but to that point, you better have the guys. The NFL is so quarters-based now. What I mean by that is the too high safety look, because it does give you opportunities to spin coverages and disguise, but also because it allows you to limit explosive plays over the top of the defense, where you have the inside verticals capped. What I mean by that is you have a safety over the top of them. But I would expect teams to have to play more man against the Bears, especially in the money down situations, 3rd and 2 to 6, 3rd and 7 to 10. Those are the situations you have to win on defense. You have to. I've always said this about defensive stats, and my business, everyone talks about defensive stats in terms of the numbers, right? And the yards per carry allowed and passing yards. I don't care about that stuff. I care about basically 2 things: points allowed and turnovers created. That's it. That's all I care about. Because at the end of the day, that's what wins football games.
Vizzy Hard Seltzer, flavors for every vibe. Celebrate responsibly. Molson Coors Beverage Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we're brought to you by PNC, official bank of the Bears. You're an Iowa guy, so, we got your punter, Torrey Taylor, and he's all the rage. And then we got the so-called punt god in the preseason game here on Thursday, Matt Ariza from the former Buffalo Bill draft pick and now Kansas City Chief. So the importance of that position, though, I know people were pulling their hair out a little bit because a 4th-round pick was invested. I could care less. I think if he's a weapon, he's a weapon. I don't care where I take him. And he appears to be. He's going to be a weapon. And with a young quarterback, with an offense, we don't know how long it'll take to get the wheels running. With a defense that seems like it's ready and is playing at a high level, and then a return game, and a punter like him that can change field position, he becomes a very important figure here in 2024. Would you agree? Because last year the Bears were dead last in net. So this will help. By any means to help your quarterback, this punter is going to help.
It'll help your defense, too.
Yes.
Think about that. The Bears, what they did over the second half of last season from a defensive perspective, they have an opportunity to be a top 10 defense this year, in my opinion. So if you have someone like Taylor who can put the ball deep in pin offenses and you put a top 10 defense out there, guess what? You can get the ball back for your quarterback in favorable field position. Now, LeVar Woods is the Iowa special teams coordinator, one of my best friends.
Okay.
And LeVar flew to Melbourne, Australia to get Taylor. I remember the story. I remember talking to him. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm flying to Australia." I said, "You got to be kidding me. For what?" He goes, "No, I'm going to get a punter." And he went to Australia and got him. Taylor's a great Hawkeye. And I said this, to your point, Jeff, we spent a 4th-round pick. No, you spent a 4th-round pick on a starter. That's what you did. A starter that can change field position to help you win football games. I wouldn't have cared if it was in the 3rd round. You spent a draft pick on a starter. And that's the important thing here, is that people always forget about special teams, especially throughout the draft process. It's all about offense and defense and playmakers and immediate impact guys. Well, guess what? This is an immediate impact. This is someone who can step in right now, be a starter, and help your football team. So I like to pick. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a Hawkeye. I understand that. But this is someone that can help you win football games. I really think from a defensive perspective, if you're Matt Eberflus, you'd be more willing to say, well, look, the way we're playing defensive football right now, let's try to pin him deep and put our top 10 unit out there. Maybe we take the football away now, or maybe we don't. Maybe we get the ball back to Caleb now at the plus 45-yard line, and we can start rolling again.
Well, Matt, Notre Dame is taking over as tight end you, so I just want you to accept that. Secondly, the new kickoff return rule. Do you think you could play on both sides of the ball, or would you be kickoff coverage main, or what do you think? What do you think about it all?
I'm very interested. I like it because there's returns. That's the number.
Me too.
It's a play now, right? You needed a play. And when I played, the ball was moved back 5 yards. I think we kicked off from the 30. And there wasn't really no rules. It was the Wild West. There was the 4-man wedge. You run down there and you say, you know what? This is really going to be uncomfortable. It's just going to hurt. But I got to do it anyways, you know? And you're running into guys like you, Tom. I mean, you had offensive linemen back there, right?
Yeah.
Can't you just run around them?
Never.
No.
I spent my whole career on kickoff return. I couldn't shy away from that contact.
No, because if you run around them, then it's a return right up the gut.
I'm only kidding.
You know, I like it. I do like it because you're getting a play now. And I think once we get to the regular season, you will see more counteraction on kickoff return, almost like a split flow zone when you bend it back. And I think you'll see more creativity with the two returners back there in terms of what you can do. Basic stuff right now, but I am for anything that allows someone to earn extra years in the league. And if you can make tackles and special teams, you can stay in the league. So I was really worried they were just going to completely wipe it away, right? Because I'll be honest, I was a starter for a couple of years in the league, but really I made the league and I stayed in the league because I could cover kicks. So I always wanted that to be a part of it because I think it creates opportunity. And more importantly, special teams, in my opinion, are the best developmental tool for football, especially for defensive players, because you have to play at top speed. You have to use your hands to stack or shed blocks. You have to play with elite vision, and you have to tackle in the open field. Now, obviously, that's reduced a little bit, but you're still getting those opportunities. And if I'm a coach and there's someone, even in the regular season, keeps making plays on special teams, it's a defensive back or linebacker, eventually I got to get them reps on defense now because they're so productive. They're proving their value so much that I'm going to give them more opportunity.
Tommy,
I'm waiting for a special teams coach to be gutsy enough to put offensive linemen on kickoff return because I think with the proximity, it's like a guard playing against a linebacker. And I think if you can attack and you can create those points of attack like you were mentioning, I think there's a place on kickoff return for offensive linemen.
That's a very interesting point. And, you know, we just talked earlier about the offensive linemen in terms of athleticism now and how they can move, how they can pull, reach outside and outside zone, get to the second level. Well, you can basically, Tom, you could run outside zone. And that's what you run an outside zone. It's just the ball carries a little deep. But look, if I'm a defensive back in this situation and an offensive lineman gets his hands on me, I'm probably not getting him off, right? Probably not in time to make a play. So it's an interesting point you bring up.
Well, Kansas City's got an offensive lineman from Marshall, last name Driscoll. And I saw him out. He's 6'8", and he was out there downfield blocking on a run the other night against Detroit. So yeah, these guys can move. They can run. Tommy, before we wrap things up, Karan Amagaji on the way back now. He's off to NFI. What are your expectations? And Matt, being at IC, I don't know if you ever had a chance to see Karan play at Hinsdale Central, but we'll start with Tommy.
I would explore where does he fit best? Where does he play the most confident? Where does his balance fit his progression the quickest? And then I think that's the one thing that Chris Morgan has done a great job. If you look at a majority of these guys, they play more than one position. So I think you got to get Amagaji fed as many reps as you possibly can over the next couple weeks to see where his template, his body, his athleticism fit in the most competitive scenario you can put him in.
I would agree with that in terms of what his talent base was, especially on his college tape. I watched his college tape from last year in terms of his raw talent and his upside, what he can bring because he has all the physical tools, right? The physical tools you want at the position. So now it's on the Bears, their coaching staff, to develop those tools. You would obviously want them more on the practice field, but you still have time throughout the regular season to develop them, whether it's in practice, whether it's in the film room, learning from the veterans, because there's going to be a time this year, and we all know this, where he's going to have to play meaningful reps for the Bears. That's how it works. When you play a long season, if the Bears have a playoff push and get into the dance, that offensive line could look much different in week 16 than it does now.
Yep. You got him listed as a tackle, but I think he could do both. But I think they're going to try him at left tackle in particular.
I expect him to be mentally up to speed as soon as he puts his pads on in today's practice. So it's not a learning curve for him because he's been around here since he's gotten drafted.
All right, lastly, I can't think of two people that love high school football more than Tom Thayer and Matt Bowen. And Matt, I know you've been spending many years now at IC helping out that program. What's it mean to both of you? And do you see as we continue to hope to protect this sport and the value of what this sport means to young men, to have these guys continue to play high school football. I know numbers have shrunk over the years. I don't know if that's going to be threatened even further, or is the influx of flag football going to get more people playing football and they'll ultimately throw on the pads one day when they don't want to play flag anymore? Matt, how you feel about it, and how's your team looking? And Tommy, I want your thoughts as well.
I think numbers, have remained steady. I know they have for the Catholic schools, especially in the Chicago Catholic League. I think our numbers in our youth programs here in Elmhurst have remained steady, almost rising at point. I loved, high school football because I believe it's the last line of competitive innocence. So I've always said about it. You're still teaching, you're still developing. It is a challenging time for young athletes because of, the development you're going through high school, both academically, athletically, and socially, right? And I think football, what it provides, and it's different for everyone. There are elite competitors who want to play football. There are others that use it to develop a peer base, right? To have people to join with throughout their high school career, which is very important to some. I'm a strong believer in high school football. I'm now going into my 10th year at IC Catholic. My coaching my son this year. My son Grant's going to be a freshman for us at IC, which is very important to me to be able to coach him. But it's been one of the most rewarding things for me, guys, and something I really needed. I've always said I've been a football guy. I have no problem saying that. It's not a knock on myself. It's who I am. But it's very rewarding to me because it gives me something and that I need in terms of having passion for something outside of my family and work. And I think everyone needs that.
I agree 100%. My brother coaches the freshman program at Joliet Catholic. My nephew's on the varsity staff at Joliet Catholic. And I have a great nephew that's going as an incoming freshman at Joliet Catholic that's going to be a part of the football program. And I do think it's a great lesson for life to be learned when you play a sport, that you develop camaraderie. You get some criticism in front of your peers that you have to accept, and you have to let it roll off your back because nobody is exempt from getting criticized when you're playing a sport. And I just think it plays an important role in the future of life. Look, if you go out your freshman year and you don't want to play anymore, at least you learned a lesson about competitive sports, and maybe it can help you in different decisions you make in life. So, Matt, I don't know. We open up with the Little Hawks from Iowa City, Iowa at Joliet Catholic. We traveled there last year to play them. And this is one of my things, Matt. I wish the IHSA would allow schools that are closest to each other to play a majority of games. Because I think when you challenge the parents that have to travel hours to go see their son or daughter involved in the football game, I think it takes away a little bit of the support of these guys and these ladies that are working hours and hours, and now they're trying to get to their sons or daughters' games. So I just wish somehow that teams that were closer to each other would have more opportunities to play, to continue the support in the stands.
I agree with that. And I'll tell you what, on Joliet Catholic, we played JCA outside of conference before we joined the Catholic League a bunch of times. And that is a 4-quarter battle. You're going to play Joliet Catholic, and you better get ready for power and trap. And power and trap over and over again. They are physical. They are nasty. They come off the ball. They are extremely well coached. And those are the games you want to coach in. Those are the games you want to play in. That's what the Catholic League provides in Chicago. You play the big teams. And look, we are the small school in the Chicago Catholic League. We have the least amount of boys. Right now we have 323 total students. Okay, so we have not two-way players, but guys that are two ways and also playing special teams. That's just how we have to coach, how we have to prepare. So for us, it is always accepting the challenge and understanding that every Friday night in that conference is going to be highly competitive with very, very well-coached football teams.
Well, Matt, you're a book of knowledge. I appreciate it. I feel like you guys are brothers. You guys look the same. Tommy just a little bit older. He's got specs. You guys got a clean dome and a lot of football knowledge. And all you guys do is watch tape. Every conversation we started with, I watch tape on him, and that's what I love about you guys. And, Matt, you do an unbelievable job. We appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and
thanks, Matt.
What a great Bears season. This will be a fun football team to watch.
It definitely looks that way. Special thanks to Matt. And for time, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please subscribe now on the Chicago Bears official app, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bear down, everybody.